Hey, this is Woodman here. So, we've often heard it said that the life that we live in is like a matrix. Not precisely like the Matrix movies, but somewhat in the sense that there's a nature to reality that we don't see that's beyond the veil. And so, I want to talk to you about the show Once Upon a Time. It was a TV series that was on ABC. Um, it's part of now the Disney collection of shows, and it's about Storybrooke, which is in Maine, um, where you have this town, and most of the town people, even though they look like ordinary people, they're actually based on fictional characters. So let's talk about the Matrix first. In the Matrix movies, these movies depict two parallel realities: the simulated reality of the Matrix and the dystopian real world. The characters live in the Matrix, which is a computer generated world, until they awaken to the harsh reality outside that they're being used as batteries for machines in the real world. I want to talk about Chosen One and Prophecy. In Once Upon a Time, Emma Swan is immediately identified as the savior, and she is prophesied to be able to break the curse and save the inhabitants of Storybrooke from their fates. Her journey from skeptic to believer mirrors the classic hero's journey. Now, mind you, the curse that I'm talking about is that these are all fairy tale characters who are living real lives in what we would have as our like 21st century style of living. And they don't realize that they're actually really based on these fairy tale characters. A lot of them don't want to believe. Only Henry is the only character who believes. In the Matrix, you have, that Neo is introduced to the fact that there's a duality to the nature of the Matrix. That in fact, what he sees every day is actually not what's real; it's what's controlled by the machines. So there's kind of a similarity there in that in both stories you have this dual reality thing going on. And so in the Once Upon a Time, you have these characters who are being manipulated by Regina, the evil queen, and also Rumpelstiltskin, who control the characters through these magic and curses, and therefore they're going through these illusions and false realities. Whereas in the Matrix, it's a system of control with the agents and programs like Agent Smith are maintaining order and they're manipulating the reality which is perceived by humans. So, in a very real sense, both of these feature characters who are struggling to break free of illusions of a false reality. In Once Upon a Time, there's also a redemption arc. Many of the characters undergo these significant redemption arcs, such as Regina's transformation from the evil queen to eventually somewhat of a leader, one that actually has a good nature, which is paralleling the complex nature of good and evil itself. That sometimes good and evil depends on your point of view. And in the Matrix, you have characters like Neo and Morpheus, and they experience a lot of personal growth and redemption. Even Agent Smith's evolution in the sequels shows a complex journey from him, from being just an outright villain to a more ambiguous entity, one that's really just struggling to survive and to not just be deleted or wiped away from the Matrix. You have these epic battles that go on in both series, both Once Upon a Time as well as The Matrix. In Once Upon a Time, the show features numerous epic battles between good and evil, often involving magical powers, fantastic creatures, fairies, enchanted objects, and the like. And whereas in The Matrix, the films are known for their iconic battle scenes, which blend martial arts and advanced weaponry and supernatural abilities, such as a scene where, someone will run along the side of the wall and then shoot at an angle and still be able to hit their targets fairly well, or even to be able to jump from rooftop to rooftop without falling to one's death. Uh, in both, you have these themes of belief and destiny. So in Once Upon a Time, you have these central themes that include belief in magic, love, and the possibility of change. The characters must believe in their fairy tale origins and the magic within to achieve their destinies. At the beginning of the show, really, Henry is the only one who seems to know what's going on, that they're living in a false reality, and everyone else is extremely hostile and resistant to the ideas that Henry is putting forth. In The Matrix, you have the importance of belief is also highlighted, especially Neo's journey to believing in himself as the one. The nature of reality is constantly being questioned with philosophical underpinnings about perception and existence. I mean, I think even the architect makes us question things when he talks about how many times Zion has been destroyed, about how the humans resisted a matrix that was too perfect, and how it needed to actually be one that was more realistic, that human minds under an illusion could actually believe in. In Once Upon a Time, the series blends elements of classic fairy tales with modern day settings, creating a magical yet familiar world, right? And in The Matrix, these movies combine high tech dystopian elements with this philosophical and metaphysical concepts, creating a unique blend of science fiction and fantasy. I mean, even when you have characters like the Merovingian and the like, or the Keymaker, these seem more like philosophical concepts, um, as you explore their characters. Uh, what about the character transformation and identity? Well, in Once Upon a Time, these characters are often struggling with their dual identities and their pasts, which leads to profound transformations and growth. In fact, sometimes you may find that as a result of, even though it was a curse, that maybe some of the shortcomings people may have had in the fantasy world actually gets corrected in the blending of the fantasy world and the real world. In The Matrix, the characters like Neo and Trinity also undergo significant transformations, realizing their true identities and their potential within and outside the Matrix. And we see that especially come to a head in the latest movie, in which we find that now Trinity is the one who is more powerful than Neo is. And they're okay with that. They're okay with the roles flipping or switching. Conclusion: in both Once Upon a Time and The Matrix, both these films or series or movies explore complex themes of dual realities, prophecy, control, and the power of belief. They feature these epic battles. They feature redemption arcs. They feature character transformations. They blend elements of magic and technology to create these rich, engaging narratives. In fact, in the first season, season one, I want to say maybe episode 5, Archie, who's a bit of a psychologist slash psychiatrist to Henry, asked him at one point, why are you so insistent on believing in this fantasy world? Why is it so important to you that this fantasy world be real? And Henry doesn't really have a real straightforward answer for that. He kind of waffles a lot when being forced to answer that question, but ultimately, what he comes to say is something to the effect of, I can't believe that this is all there is, you know? And that's kind of like how our world is that sometimes, we question our reality and the nature of the world that we're living in. We realize this can't be all that there is. There's something more going on, but you have to keep your eye out and you have to be attentive. We want to talk a little bit about Regina more now, about her transformation. So, um, in the beginning, she was actually a very kind, loving woman, as we learn her storyline. Her mother, Cora, was manipulative and power hungry, and she was the one to actually push Regina down a darker path. And as a child, Snow White inadvertently revealed Regina's secret love affair with a stable boy named Daniel. This betrayal led Cora to kill Daniel, believing that he was an obstacle to Regina's rise to power. So what we find is that her mother was really the truly cruel one, and even though Regina didn't want to be cruel initially, the loss of Daniel broke her heart and turned her down the path of darkness that exactly her mother Cora wanted her to go down. And so Snow's revelation of this really wasn't mean spirited, it wasn't intentional, it was actually inadvertent, but it ended up earning her the hatred in Regina's heart that festered and made Regina bitter over the years. So Regina began to descend into darkness. She became the evil queen, consumed by grief and anger, as she embraced dark magic and sought to make Snow White suffer. She learned from people like Rumpelstiltskin and others, and what she learned was getting darker and darker and darker as the pain in her heart twisted her and turned her into a truly evil woman. But this was just a woman who really lived in a perpetual state of misery. And so ultimately, we realize that this cannot hold forever. And that's when Regina begins her redemption arc. After going through many struggles and realizations In Storybrooke, Regina was vengeful and cruel initially, but her relationships with her adopted son Henry and the town's inhabitants begin to change her. In other words, she's the one that created this twisted reality, and yet she became enveloped by it. She became, drawn into it. The fact that she adopted Henry and grew to love him made her realize that that she couldn't be evil, to the end of time. That she had to kind of change. That eventually the people began to grow on her. The relationships she formed began to change her, and that she, in fact, did feel that even she was worthy of some kind of redemption. So she had to turn and face her demons. She had to basically atone for her past actions, understanding the pain and suffering that she caused to others. She had to begin to seek forgiveness and make amends for those things that she did. She started to get support and friendship from unlikely friends, including Snow White and Emma, who help her and make her realize that redemption is possible. Their support is crucial in her transformation. And so that ultimately is that bitterness can only corrupt and darken and make things worse. And so at some point you have to let go of hate. And so Regina had to develop inner strength, and her path to redemption involved immense personal growth. She learned to let go of her hatred and embrace love and forgiveness. As she did this, she began to take on a new identity. She had to shed her old identity as the evil queen and strive to be a better person and ruler. Her quest for redemption led her to becoming a beloved and respected leader. And this is actually amazing when you think about it, because it's kind of like how our lives are. We're not just consigned to be evil forever. We can truly change our lives and go down the right path if we choose it. If we choose to believe we're worth it, if we choose to believe that we are not lost. Even though these people that she initially encountered, like Snow White and Emma, were enemies, she began to have a new understanding of them and a new role. And by the end of the series, she's no longer defined by her past, but by the person she's become. She earns the title of Good Queen, symbolizing her complete transformation and redemption. And that's one of the biggest things that a lot of people get caught up on, is they can't move past the past. Sometimes people become alcoholics because of it. Sometimes people become drug addicts because of it. Because once something in the past is so devastating to them that they lose, it's like they just wallow in that pain, that misery, and they let that torture them, and they remain stuck in it, and they don't have a way to move forward, and they become twisted by it, and they become stuck in place. And I've heard it said from some spiritualists that if you can't find the light to learn to love, forgive, and grow, that this is how the devil wins, that this is how Satan wins. That Satan really is not here to destroy you or to throw you into the fires. Satan is here to delay you, because we're here on this earth to do amazing things. Life is a blessing. We're given a chance as we are incarnated into this world to experience amazing things. So one thing we should not do is waste a moment of the time that we spend on earth caught up on things that really do nothing for us, right? In other words, if all you want to do is live a boring existence on earth, then what have you really done with your life? All you've done is existed. You haven't made anything special. You haven't done anything meaningful. Yeah, you might have some happy memories here and there, and so you're living off of that. But beyond that, what have you really done? Are you touching lives? Are you helping others? Are you a light to the others? Are you raising the general consciousness? What are you doing to make the world a better place? And I fall into this trap myself sometimes. Sometimes, I may want to draw into myself. I may want to just, kind of move away from people, because sometimes it's very easy to be betrayed in this world, right? It's very easy to make friends and then come to find out that these friends aren't really worth their weight in salt. But we can't let these situations that go awry, these situations that don't turn out the way we like, these situations that disappoint us deeply on a soul level, we can't let that define our existence, right? We just have to simply acknowledge that, okay, that didn't work out, but there's other opportunities over here waiting for us to try. Sometimes you have to keep trying different doors until you find the ones that are open that are meant for you. Just because your life doesn't look exactly the way you want it to be doesn't mean your life is a failure. You have to recognize that we didn't come here for life to be easy. If we did that, that would be much like what was talked about in The Matrix with the architect, right? When the architect said, we gave people everything they wanted and they rejected it because their minds could not perceive a reality like that. There was no challenge to it. There was nothing going on. Their minds were looking for, there has to be obstacles, there has to be roadblocks, there has to be difficulties. That's what we came to experience. Sure, everyone's going to tell you up and down, I don't want roadblocks, I don't want difficulties, I don't want to struggle. But at the end of the day, it's still a necessary part of our existence on Earth. And people can say all day long, I don't like it, I don't want it. But it is somehow for our own good. And that's something that's not easy to understand unless you're really spiritually mature enough to get it, right? To get that you just can't always have your way all the time. There must be a balance. Life has to be filled with ebbs and flows. And when things flow, that's when the good times roll. And we live for those moments. But we nonetheless can't just live for hedonism and pleasure. We have to actually do something with ourselves in this world. And so, what are we going to do? In other words, I'm pretty sure that if people didn't push themselves hard, we wouldn't have bridges, right? Because when you think about a bridge, it to build a bridge takes a lot of conception, a lot of manpower, a lot of coordination. It's not easy. Or even to build a spacecraft that is able to achieve flight and break our atmosphere and go into space. That is an amazing achievement. These are people who are pushing themselves to their limits to make the world a better place. A person who invents a type of car, or even the first car, or whatever the case may be. Tools, inventions, anything, techniques, forms of science, forms of mathematics, different ideas, designing, decorating, whatever the case may be, architecture. People are pushing themselves to make fantastic things that are part of the ultimate design of the world we live in. And those people help to make a world a better place. What are we doing about it? How are we making the world a better place? And so that's truly important when you think about the reality that you live in, whether you choose to view it as a matrix, whether you choose to view it as the curse from once upon a time, however you view this dual reality that we're living in, right? Because ultimately, we always talk about, oh no, this person died, oh no, this person died. We're ultimately immortal. Our souls are immortal. We are wrapped around this mortal coil, which is these bodies that we're in, but that's not the be all end all of us. We continue to exist. All matter and energy is neither created nor destroyed, right? Ultimately, it becomes something else, and that's not the end of it. We do not end. We are here experiencing this time limited experience for what it's worth, and it's an adventure for us, and each incarnation is a very special adventure for us. But we have to make the most of it. We can't just come here and do nothing. And so that's the real point of this whole message is really think about your life and where you want to be and what you want to do and how far you want to go. How do you feel you can be a best of service to yourself, to others, to God, to this universe, to this world, this reality that we live in? You are capable of so much more. Your only limitations are you. And the biggest limitations are when you let negative forces interrupt your story with so many sad events that you don't find a way to move past that. That's the trap. That's where bad wins. Bad wins when bad can slow you down, delay you, and force you to have to basically abandon your mission and not fulfill your life purpose before your time on this earth is done, in which case it might have to be fulfilled in a later incarnation or something to that effect. I hope you enjoyed this message. If you're new here, this is a safe space. Oh, welcome. If you're returning, I'm glad you're back. Thank you for your support of this channel. I love you. Have a wonderful and blessed day. Take care. Bye.